Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort, and you know what? We are here for some Harry Potter, this being part four of a 14-part series. I think I misspoke in the last episode and said that was part 4, but this is part 4 of a 14-part series as we journey through Harry Potter and the Phoenix Suns. I am not a role model. If you get that reference, jump into the comments below and let me know, and you will win absolutely nothing. This video is over chapters 7, 8, and 9, and in chapter 7, Mr. Weasley takes Harry to the hearing for 20 pages. That's what we get. Chapter 8, the hearing in which some people sit around Harry Potter and say mean things, but it doesn't matter because Dumbledore shows up and raises vaguely relevant pseudo-arguments, and there are no consequences. Hooray! This is Harry Potter, nothing ever matters. Chapter 9, Ron and Hermione are prefects, and Mrs. Weasley likes to think about dead children. Mad Eye Hemingway shows Harry a gif of dead people. Lots of dead people. And our walk-in quote of the week comes from page 167, and again I'm doing the walk-in quote of the week to emphasize the very normalized rhythm with which Rowling writes. However, this week, the rhythm of this is a bit different. Ron had not asked Dumbledore to give him the prefect badge. This was not Ron's fault. Was he, Harry, Ron's best friend in the world, going to sulk because he didn't have a badge, laugh with the twins behind Ron's back, ruin this for Ron when for the first time he had beaten Harry at something? So that is a very, with all the little subsets forced by the commas, that is a bit different of J.K. Rowling's writing, which we're actually seeming to get more and more, and there are some other differences, I believe, with the writing in this book that I am starting to notice that I think we will get into later. I'm not sure if you can hear anything with the way this is. Okay, so we're going to carry right through. First off, comments. There were a lot of comments in the last video, and I was an idiot who said this at the end of the video after you had already stopped watching or fallen asleep. I miss interacting with comments. So if you have a comment that is spoiler-free and that I can read and you want me to interact with, write Adrian, A-D-R-I-A-N, in caps before the comment, because that way when it pops up in the previews, the comment previews, I'm able to see that and know that the comment is spoiler-free. So last episode we had that discussion about passions and what is it that you would do, that you would sacrifice everything else in order that you might do that you might pursue X for the rest of your life. And Miriam Frei says, literature and reading, which is a cause so close to my own heart. Juan, from Just One Reader, who is a booktuber and supremely charming, by the way, says, psychoanalysis, which if, Juan, you have not read the book, The Mind and the Brain by Jeffrey Schwartz, there are some stops along the way that I think you would really enjoy from that, in that. And Silje, reading and the ability to be creative every day, especially as she channels this through her teaching. Silje is another wonderful asset to the booktube world, and I would be interested in Silje putting together a series about how she channels creativity through her teaching, because I think that that is an interesting and unique niche inside the booktube community. I feel like there are many educators on here, and some discussion between them about little tricks and tools of the trade, little maybe brainstorms, I think would be interesting to watch even from an outside perspective. Mary Viscero, Mary, M-A-Y-R-I, says also that literature is her ex. And Mary, I hope that you've come to the right place. I think that the booktube is definitely a community which will harbor that as your ex. And I don't think you are a content creator. Maybe think about it. Helene from Books by Lanes says, probably in her stupid accent, she cites a myriad of passions, including language and gymnastics. And this raises the question of balance. To say that for me, it's definitely literature and writing, the pursuit of American letters, the pursuit of letters, a life of letters in general, is that for which I would sacrifice everything. But I also have a lot of other interests, so I'm interested to know how people balance these things, because I find myself indulging too far in one or the other often, and compromising everything by trying to find balance, right? Not excelling in anything because I'm doing a little of this and a little of that and a little of this on any given week. Also, Kristen Meraki knows what she did correctly, and she will forever be known as Neo-Pixie Humbug. And back to the reading. One small thing in these chapters that J.K. Rowling throws in is that Arthur Weasley, on the day of the hearing, is wearing pinstripe slacks and a bomber jacket. Pinstripe pants are very suave. They scream business/money success. And bomber jackets are really cool, right? But they are different, because while pinstripe pants scream business/money success, bomber jackets kind of scream I'm the tough guy, right? So these are two things that are very cool, but would not normally go together. And it is interesting to see this from this passed off so coolly, right? We just get the slight mention of it, and it's something that would be very easy to read over if you were not paying attention to it, or if you were paying attention to it and you realized, hey, I like this, hey, I like that, this looks cool, that looks cool, and you don't really envision it together, which is one of the things that is tricky about literature, right? These small things that are snuck in can go unnoticed, and a non-muggle wouldn't get that these two things don't go together. He's just throwing two of his favorite things together, and it reminds me of a story from my own life. I have a friend who was from China, and I was actually teaching her to drive, right? We'd become friends, and I was teaching her how to drive, and we had gone to several places, to eat, and I remember she used to mix sugar with her ketchup, which always threw me off, right? But she had never had American breakfast, so we ended up going to IHOP. And it's a strange story on several levels. Like, first of all, she had never experienced American breakfast. This was 10 o'clock at night, probably after 10 o'clock at night. So it's a strange time to experience breakfast. But IHOP serves that all day, any day, so you get to have it. And she looks at me and she says, "What is delicious?" Right? Because when you learn another language through vocabulary words, you or I wouldn't look at each other and say, "Hey, what is delicious?" We'd say, "Hey, what's good? What do you get? What do you like?" But you get these vocabulary words and you work all the way up to delicious. That's the one I want. So I said, "Hey, if you're going to have American breakfast, you kind of got to have pancakes." So these pancakes come, and she grabs them, and she doesn't even look at the syrup. She goes straight for the ketchup. She likes ketchup. She thinks pancakes are about to be delicious. So she grabs the ketchup, and before I can say anything, she's glopping that stuff on. And I just kind of sit back, because what do you do at that point? You can't say, "You just ruined everything." So she ate her pancakes with ketchup and really sort of liked it. So, that's just an interesting story. It doesn't really mean anything in the context of this, but it was one of those situations where someone foreign to the circumstance comes in, thinks, "I like ketchup, I'm supposed to like pancakes, let's put these two together." We get this quote from page 137, which is interesting on many levels. It is 137 on to 138. And this is a long one, so bear with me. The walls were made of dark stone, dimly lit by torches. Empty benches rose on either side of him, but ahead, in the highest benches of all, were many shadowy figures. They had been talking in low voices, but as the heavy door swung closed behind him, Harry heard an ominous silence fell. A cold voice rang out across the courtroom. "You're late." "Sorry," said Harry nervously. I didn't know the time had changed." "That is not the Wizengamet's fault," said the voice. "An owl was sent to you this morning. Take your seat." Harry dropped his gaze to the chair in the center of the room, the arms of which were covered in chains. He had seen those chains spring to life and bind whoever sat in them. His footsteps echoed loudly as he walked across the stone floor. When he sat gingerly on the edge of the chair, the chains clinked rather threateningly, but did not bind him. Feeling rather sick, he looked up at the people seated at the bench above. Now, we've spoken many times on this channel about the woods in Western literature, the place of mystery, the place where the primitive reigns. Here, we are given an explanation about how imposing this courtroom is. And why is this interesting, and why am I invoking the woods? Through the eyes of a child, this explanation sounds very in the woods-like, right? All of these ominous things happening around us. Adults are ruled by law and order, a type of ethics, if you will. All of those things happen, unless I am mistaken, Juan, you can chime in on this, in the frontal lobe. The child's world, children being more primitive, more natural, they have yet to have a strong base in the frontal lobe. They are more impulse-driven. This comes from the reptile brain. Here the standard literary trope is flipped on its head. We have a child who is more naturalistic, being inserted, being thrust into the world of law and order. And we get these descriptions, and listen to these descriptive words. We have the walls were made of dark stone, dimly lit by torches, like one might carry through the woods. The benches rose on either side of him, growing like trees. Were many shadowy figures, like one could not see through trees. A cold male voice rang across the courtroom. Cold being a very naturalistic word which one would not normally associate with sound. An owl was sent, which is vaguely outdoorsy, despite the fact that, well, it's very outdoorsy, but it's sort of in that questionable realm because of the use they have in the magic world. He had seen those chains spring to life. Again, we're invoking the stone floor. He sat gingerly. The chains clinked rather threateningly. Snake-like, perhaps? So these are all things that are very in the woods-like, but they're seen. So another interesting level to this is the fact that though we are invoking the woods-like scenario through the eyes of a child, it's still being written by an adult. So the things that would be unnatural to a child, that a child might notice and be intimidated by, in the mind of an adult, they're still refiltered through this in the woods type necessity for describing those events which are very unnerving, describing those events which are very unnatural. I'm not sure exactly how to say it. And as we move on through these chapters, what are we to make of the melodramatic scene with Mrs. Weasley looking at the Boggart? We see all of her sons dead. We see Arthur Weasley dead. We see Harry Potter dead. Unless I misread this situation, we don't see Ginny dead. And we don't see Hermione dead. This is interesting. But my question for you this week, does this humanize Mrs. Weasley? Is this a moment which we are, I know it's a moment we're supposed to connect with. Is it a moment that we do connect with? Or is this too easily written off as another stereotype of a mother that can't stop worrying? I think that it's also, I'm not sure if this is J.K. Rowling making up for the fact that Mrs. Weasley was so overbearing in the first few chapters, or if Mrs. Weasley was overbearing in the first few chapters to sort of set this up. I don't remember her. I remember her being overbearing in previous books. I don't remember this level of a heavy hand. And lastly, along that same note, is it just me, or are we having to hear a lot more about Harry Potter's feelings in this book? Is it perhaps that J.K. Rowling is not simply writing a fantasy adventure for children anymore, that she has by this point identified very heavily with Harry Potter, so she is not allowing herself to hold up the objective correlative, not in ideas but things, and she is strictly communicating more things, or more ideas, fewer things. Harry Potter felt, Harry Potter was angry, Harry Potter suddenly lashed out at all of his friends. That's all I've got for this week. Again, I'm looking forward to your comments in the comments section below. Hit like if you liked what you saw here. Subscribe if you have not already.